Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Robyn Carlson, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. Like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we'd like to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today, and then we want to talk about your mobile notary service. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here. I'm super excited for this. So tell us where you were born.
So I was born in San Diego, California. I'm 4 generations native San Diegan.
That's
So
cool.
great grandma was Coronado. My grandma was Point Loma. Myself and my mom are North Park.
That's
So we are
awesome.
grounded here. And my daughter was born in Tri-City in Oceanside. So she's 5th generation native San Diego County.
There you go. I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, Tri-City's not far from here.
No.
So did you grow up in Oceanside?
No,
Or in
I
San
grew up
Diego?
in San Diego from 3rd up to 3rd grade. And then in 3rd grade, my dad was transferred by Pacific Telephone up to Riverside. So I
Oh,
spent 3rd grade through October of my senior year in Riverside. And then due to the smog, it was so bad up there during that time, my dad transferred us back down. And so I spent my senior year in a brand new, to me, school.
oh my gosh.
I was a rebel.
There you go. So what was your favorite thing about growing up in Riverside?
Our family was really involved in the community with PTA and band and Girl Scouts and just about everything. And so what I liked is traveling because it's flat. So wherever I wanted to go, I didn't have to ask permission to drive the car or get in the car. I just rode my bike.
Gotcha. So growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
I think the most influential were my parents, my dad and my mom. My dad was a rule: learn the rules, stay within the box, know what is expected. And my mom was, okay, and throw in your own levity.
I love that. They're like they complement each other.
They do.
That's
They
awesome.
do.
That's awesome. So in high school, did you have a
Mhm.
favorite subject?
I was a band nerd. So
Oh,
I was marching band all the way before, after, during, everything weekend, but I also enjoyed creative writing. So
okay.
I wrote poems and a couple books that sat on the shelf for a very long time. So that was my focus, was mainly the band and the social aspect of
Yeah.
that.
What instrument did you play?
I played clarinet because my dad played clarinet.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, so in 4th grade, you can play something and it has to be string orchestra. So I
Yeah.
did that, and then in 5th grade, clarinet was it, and I played that all the way up into when I went into college.
Wow, that's awesome. So you
Yeah.
graduate from high school and
Uh-huh.
you go to college. Where did you
Uh-huh.
go to college and why?
Okay. I went to San Diego State initially. I was
You're an
there for
Aztec. I love
Yes,
it.
I am marching Aztec alumni.
Oh, I love
So
it. That's cool.
so I was there till my 3rd year. I met my husband, married in my 3rd year. I told my junior, I said, "Hey, I'm going to go to work this in the summer. If I like it, I'm not going back to school." He said, "I don't care."
Yeah.
So I liked it and I didn't go back. And later on, I received a position that I got a supervisor position. And I had made a really bad error earlier in my life when I was young. I worked for Jack Valaine's and they promoted me to supervisor. And I went in and did just like my dad did, complete everything myself, redid everything on the floor, created a lot of enemies, just did a really bad job. So
Mm.
when I was promoted 10 years later to this processing job as supervisor of loan processing, I said, okay, I'll accept this position, but I need training. And I said, okay, go to Mesa College in San Diego and get your certificate of supervision. So
Ooh,
I was 2 years there to take, because it was a night class. So it's like
yeah,
one class a week,
sure.
yeah. So I got my certificate, but then they realized I'd been at state all those years. So I got to turn that into an AS in supervision.
Oh,
So
that's
that was
awesome.
pretty cool.
Good,
Yeah,
good for you.
yeah, thank you. Took a
Mesa
long
College is
time.
amazing. That's cool. That's
Yep,
awesome.
I was
Okay.
old.
So after college,
Mhm.
so you go to work, you said in the summer, right? Where did you
Yes.
go to work?
I worked at Jack LaLanne's. So
Okay.
I was an aerobic instructor.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
how
this was
long and you
early.
were with them for 10 years?
No, I was with them for probably a year,
Oh,
and
okay.
then I got promoted or then I left there and went to work at Wawanesa Insurance and learned about mainstream employment.
Mhm.
And then I went to work for American Title Company as a receptionist. And
Mhm.
then they laid off because that's earlier and when everything was kind of crazy at the time.
Yeah.
And so I got laid off there, and they got me a job with Union Home Loans in their investment side. So
Yeah.
that's where I got my notary commission and my real estate license, all on their time and their money. And
Oh,
I
that's
was young.
awesome.
It's like, okay, cool.
Why
And that
not?
last, I know. So we were doing interest rates at 21%.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was like 1981.
Yeah. So when
And
people whine about interest rates now, you're kind of like, hey, hey,
I just zip it.
hey.
But
That's
then on
enough
the other hand,
whining
the
for now, right?
prices were 100,000, they weren't
Yeah.
$1 million, but still
Yeah.
so that's what led me in when I left there in 6 months, I went to work for Mission Hills Mortgage, which was part of Tarbell. And
Yeah.
that's where I learned from the very beginning on a processor because they were hiring a senior to help do the senior processor.
Yeah.
I was not. They couldn't find anybody. I said, "Hey, I've been unemployed 2 weeks. I need a job. Want me or not?"
Yeah.
So they said, "Okay," but they didn't tell the staff. So they
Wow.
said, so the lady said, "Okay." Sandra Kevin came in and says, "Okay, here's your loan file. Open it up. I'll see you in 15 minutes." So I'm like, "Okay." So I opened up the manila file and sat there for 15 minutes. And
Wow.
she came back and goes, "Oh my goodness, you don't know what you're doing, do you?" Nope. So
Yeah.
I learned from November 15th, 1982, loan processing, wholesale, went to work finally with self-employed, and then went to work with Plaza Funding
Yep.
and was there for a year or so, and then moved to Oceanside and went to work for Commonwealth Financial for a few years. And then I found out I was pregnant, which was lovely. And I told my husband, I said, "I don't want someone else raising my kid. I'm 41 years old." So I went to work contract processing at home. And then that developed into working with a 1099.
Mhm.
And then 2008 happened.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
said, "I'm not doing this more. Too much fraud." I could see that coming up. And I was standalone. And so I just said, "No, thank you." And I put everything in my notary basket and ta-da. So here I am.
That's awesome. You know, a lot of people felt that way in the years leading up to 2008. I mean,
Hmm.
it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy the type of loans that were being done and
Yes.
the way they were being done, right? Especially those of us that were, old timers, I guess is the best way to put it, right?
Hmm.
Because I got in the business in 92. I
Hmm.
started in the mortgage side. I actually worked with Plaza Funding for 6 months
Yeah.
um, for Baron O'Brien. Um, yeah, that was yeah,
They're
and then
good
I ended up
times.
then I ended up at Medallion,
Okay.
um, and ended up going on the builder side with them. And yeah, we've chewed a lot of the same dirt, which I sort of knew we would have, right? When we talked about Sean Murphy and everybody.
Hmm.
So and Jenny's been around forever in real estate, and she actually worked for Remax in Escondido, which was our competitor, right? When we had our Keller Williams office there. So yeah, nothing like it. So let me ask you this. So you make the decision in 2008 to just do mobile notary. You had
Hmm.
been doing it before though, right? Hadn't you been
Mm-mm.
had you been doing mobile notary before or
Not like
notarizing?
that. I had my license, my commissions, and I just kept it every 4 years, like real estate. I just kept
Gotcha.
doing it. I used it a couple times to help out Tarbell Escrow because they were right next door when they needed something at the last minute, but
Yeah.
not really. I just
Okay.
kept doing it. I'm motivated to keep on. It's easy. I didn't want to go back to school. I could
Right.
do renewal for 6 hours.
Right.
And so that's why I did it. So I was helping out with loan documents when escrows got stuck, but
Yeah.
I didn't work. I wasn't on a go-to list. I did personal relationships.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So like
Okay.
if you were a lender, I would come to you personally and say, "Hey Mike, who's your preferred notary?" "I don't know." "Well, now you know."
Yeah.
And then went through the steps to become that.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so 2008 hits,
Yep.
and let's be honest, there's not a lot going on in real estate in 2008, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it seemed like, I mean, we owned that Keller Williams office. We started it in 2001, January 2001, and we owned that office for a number of years before all this hit. And it seemed like everybody was going great guns, and everything was,
Hmm.
progressing the way it should be. And then one day we looked up and our office was empty. And instead of a waiting list to have an office in our office, we didn't have anybody in the office, period. And the waiting list was gone. Like everybody, right? It seemed like just the massive brakes were put on and houses were just not selling. Now, they were selling, as we know from looking at the forensics, but at the time it felt like they weren't, right? It felt like there was just this huge thing.
Hmm.
So going into the mobile notary space, what was the key to making sure that you had enough happening in 2008 with production being down and numbers being down the way they were?
So this story is I was doing a set of loan documents at the Starbucks on Sycamore in Office 78.
Yeah.
It was an agent I didn't know, so I'm getting that ego out there to impress with my knowledge, seasoned knowledge, and intuition. Brand new first time buyers that I really had to make sure they understood what they were signing to best
Yeah.
of my knowledge. And I'm within the notary realm. So I'm doing this, and I kept catching this lady's eye off to the side. I'm going, maybe I'm talking too loud.
Yeah.
So I toned it down and said, and I kept, it kept attracting me. So I'm like, okay, just do it, just focus. I've got a job here to do. So
Right.
everybody's happy. We all leave unpacked. If she walks over, I kind of sit up straight, getting ready for that. Uh-oh. And she says, I just want to let you know that that was the best notary, that explanation of loan docs I've ever heard. I'm Ashley Bedard with Remax Royal. And I'm
Awesome.
like, oh my goodness. And she says, I want to invite you to BNI. Well, what's that?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Right.
This is my mobile notary business. I'm not front office. I've already been back office. You guys did the sales.
Yeah.
I just made sure it flowed through and got approved. So I went and I learned. I was there for a year. I'll do anything. Well, I do things for a year unless it's not safe.
Right.
And so I was there for a year. I went to all the meetings. I got their green light. I did everything that you're supposed to do. I made a ton of quality referrals. I learned what a quality referral was because the first time I was there, I'm going, oh, look it, there's JoJo's Plumbing. Here you go.
Hmm.
You asked for a plumber. Do you know this person? Well, I
Hmm.
could go down the yellow pages and do that.
Yeah.
That's how far it goes.
Right.
And so I learned, somebody took me aside and said, this is what a hot quality referral is. So
Right.
I learned all about that. So the education I learned with BNI is what I teach now. It's priceless.
Yeah.
The going there and the money was not so good. I was making $40 every time I went out, which with my budget didn't help with that.
Right.
So when I left there, then I found another group that's similar. There's a lot of like baby BNIs around
Yeah.
that we
Okay.
like. We like everything about them except the structure and the show up. But when I teach my new notaries, the newbie notaries that come to me to learn about their business, that's one thing. Go find a BNI, go find someplace that
Yeah.
you're there every week, committed, so that you can learn, and bypass trying to get your feet wet by yourself. It doesn't work that way.
Right. No, it's
So,
absolutely true.
yes. So my notary business didn't come from the mortgage loan officer in that group. It came from everybody else referring everything. And I found out that when the market went bad again, I'm like, okay, loan documents are not really happy right now. What can I do?
Right.
And I looked outside of the box and I realized that's what my purpose is. I know what's in the box and I can stand that box, but let's see what's outside of that box. So I was able to support estate attorneys with living trusts. So my point to that was to the new notaries is that I spent an hour or less, made $150 on a full set of living trust
Hmm.
versus having to have a 60-day relationship with all these other people's involved for the same amount of money on a set of loan docs.
Right.
So, notaries want to make the money when they're brand new. I want to make all this money, so loan docs is it.
Right.
You don't have to go that route.
Right.
So that's where my business supports mainly everything else but real estate, but I still do that. I have clients that call for seller packages or out of state packages, things like that. So I'm still in it that way.
Yeah.
But my joy is like servicing the community as a whole,
Yeah.
like remember me for notary. That's
Yeah. Just it's a diversification thing more than
Yes.
anything else. And
Yes.
when estate attorneys need you, mortgage may not as much. Mortgage may not need you as much as state attorneys do, that kind of thing, right? So one of the most listened to popular episodes we've ever done in the 13 months we've been doing this, or almost 13 months, was with an estate attorney in Coachella Valley. And he has a great story, right? And it's one of the most popular that we've had. So yeah, I mean, you've got to be able, like you're saying, to figure out a way to sort of be something to as many different sort of channels as you possibly can, right? So that you can keep everything going, right? These different funnels that, what we call funnels in the business, are very, very important. That's awesome. So in mobile notary since 2008, what's the number one thing that you've learned? Number one most important lesson you've learned?
The number one most important lesson I've learned. And my brain is spinning now. That one.
Yeah.
I would say
It's okay if it's more than one. It's okay.
Okay. I would say for me is to be knowledgeable. For
Yeah.
me, it's to be knowledgeable and to use my intuition. For example, when I'm going out in the public, I have a take sheet. The first thing I ask is, how'd you find me? Because that's important to know.
Oh, sure.
The second part is, with notary, you have to have your proper ID. I work within the senior community a lot because of the mobile aspect. So I'm all over the place here in North County. So I have to ask, what ID are you using? And is it current? Because when you get there and you don't ask the ID, then I can't help them.
Right.
So my major lesson that I think is to ask the question and then to be okay with the answer. Like my dad used to say, you have to ask the question and remember that knows an answer.
Right.
And to go along. So I think that's the major thing I do a lot of upfront before I leave the front door questions on where I'm going, what I'm doing, and why.
Right.
And a lot of times people will want a will notarized in California. If you notarize a will, you're kind of like associated with an attorney, so that you don't do that, and it's not required. Witnesses are usually. So if someone really wants that notary and they just want to make sure they feel more secure for whatever their reason is, then I ask for 2 witnesses to sign as well, and then I can notarize all of that. But what I'm finding out for my PSAs is that seniors, we're talking 55, 65 years old, they're either deciding they don't want to drive anymore or they're being told not to drive. And so I would show, you have your ID? Oh, yeah, fine. And these are clients that I would see every year for an annual, like a pension letter, something like that. And I'd go and it's not current.
Yeah.
And so my big thing is usually when their driver's license is expired, so is their passport, and those are the 2 most common. So I did a PSA postcard on how to obtain your California Senior Citizen Identification Card.
Oh,
Which
there you
just
go.
like your driver's license, except it's in green writing, and it lasts a long time because you need a state ID for a notary, a passport. But like I said, a lot of it expired. The other angle that I work on with my PSA is with my estate attorneys, in that when my daughter was turning 18, I'd been in the business for quite a while.
Yeah.
And one of our teachers said, hey, you need to get her a young adult package. But what's that?
Right.
It's a durable power of attorney for finance, a durable power of attorney for advanced healthcare, and a HIPAA. So your agent can look at your medical records. Because one of the teachers, 18-year-olds, was up at Berkeley and they got in an automobile accident. And she called the hospital. One of the friends had called her and said, hey, this is what happened to him. You need to call. They wouldn't talk to her because he was an adult, didn't have a durable power of attorney. So she was able to get that taken care of by going up there. So this allows the young adult, especially if they're going off to college or if they're just around, and you don't have to own a piece of property to get a whole estate trust.
Right.
It's about assets amount. And so this helps. And so that's what I'm sharing with college students or with anybody I talk to, or even the parents when I'm doing a signing. Oh, we're finishing up a living trust. You have kids? Yeah. Well, no, they're 18. Well, that's my in.
Right.
So that's what I promote. So for me, it's about finding out what service I can provide you that you didn't really know you needed.
Yeah. And that's awesome. That's awesome. That makes what you're doing invaluable, right? Because they don't know that they don't know. They don't know that they need this type of, and I didn't know. I'm literally learning something from you that I didn't know, and it's something that we should have for our kids, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's yeah, we didn't have that when they went off to college. They're both graduated from college now, but
Mhm.
um yeah, that's actually that's a good idea.
It's
That's
a
actually
very good
something that's really
idea.
prudent. Yeah.
And if I get like pushback a little bit, I says, well, if you don't want to do that, the state will decide for you in probate.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and it's, anybody, I've been involved in a lot of probate, and I know you have too. Anybody who's ever dealt with the state of California and specifically with the probate court and how decisions are made, and I'm not criticizing them. What I'm saying is it's when probate takes control, there are some things that happen that people just don't agree with.
Right.
And I can give you a perfect example. I received a phone call, and this was a long time ago now, but I received a phone call from a lady who had lost her mother. And she was she was grieving, obviously, and found out that her mom had passed away, what they call intestate, because they couldn't find the will. She had a will, but they couldn't
Mhm.
find it. And by the way, that's something that I think people should be aware of. If you have a trust, you need to keep a copy of it, and you need to
Mhm.
tell somebody where that copy is, right? So like yesterday,
Exactly.
I interviewed a young man who created created an app that you probably should check out. It's called Treasure Tracker. And what it's
Okay.
about is it's an app that you can download for free, and you can use it to itemize different things for an estate. And there are different, wishes that you can put in there and all kinds of different things. So you can leave instructions for people, right? One of the things you can do in there is you can leave an instruction on the third drawer down, the dresser in the third bedroom, right? Has the trust document in it, that kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Or it's in our safety deposit box or whatever. I I've been involved in so many situations over the years where the heirs didn't know where the documents were and couldn't
Mhm.
find them. And then they went to the attorney's office, and the attorney's office is closed. They retired. They don't have the documents anymore. And so people think that, and incorrectly so, people think that these documents are still deposited somewhere and they can always just pick up the phone and call. I've done that. I've made those phone calls,
Mhm.
and I've had those conversations with people where the attorney passed away and they shut the office down and they got rid of all the documents and they don't have it. You know what I mean? It's like it's scary. So it's incredibly important that people realize that they really need to know, they need to tell their heirs where these documents are located so that they can locate them should something happen. So, and it's and I had this lady called me and she said, my mom died. She had a will, but we can't find the will. So her estate is now in probate. And I need you to sell this house for us.
Oh my.
Okay. And she said, and by the way, just so you know, it's in rough shape. Okay. She said, I'm going to mail you a key. Okay. So she mails me a key. I go down to the house, I open it up, and it's full of mold,
Oh.
floor to ceiling full of mold. What had happened was mom had lost dad. So mom had lost her husband. Daughter lived in Big Bear. Mom moved to Lancaster, rented an apartment so that she could be closer to her daughter in case something happened to her, right?
Right.
She basically closed up the house, left it that way. It hadn't been even opened in over a decade. There was a rainstorm and a tree next to the house fell into the house and punched a hole in the roof. Well, it took weeks for Sears to go out and repair the roof and put a new roof on, right? Because it was raining the whole time. It was one of those really wet winters. So it rained inside that attic and inside the master bedroom for weeks, right? And then Sears comes in and they seal it up and they put a new roof on, but nobody does anything about the interior of the house, so it's locked up. So there's mold in there growing the entire time. So I go in, floor to ceiling mold, walk through it. It looks like mom was just there. I'm not joking. It was surreal. And so I end up going out and look and, making contacts with different investors that I have and that kind of thing. We end up getting an offer. The offers were $260,000, and probate sends their probate referee, right,
Right.
out to go value the property. He comes
Mhm.
back with 450.
Wow.
So I called him and I said, "Hey," this is back when you could talk to the referee. I called him up and I said, "Hey," I said, I'm the only one that has a key to this house. So I'm pretty sure that the answer to this is no, but did you walk inside that house? No. Okay. So would you like to meet me out there to walk inside the house before you, stand by this 450 number, right? And he said, "No, no, no, I'm not going there. I don't walk inside houses. I just drive by, I pull my comps and I give probate a
Oh,
number." That's the kind of thing that, good, bad, or indifferent, okay? And I'm not
right.
criticizing the probate court or any of that.
Mhm.
What I'm saying is that's what people are relegating themselves to. That's what is going to happen, right? So I said to him, I said, that house is completely full of mold. And he goes, "Well, I'm definitely not going now." And I said, "Well, you know, here's the thing." And so I walked him through it. He said, "I'll tell you what, do this because of the situation and because it's exigent, basically, right? Because of the situation, I will make a note, go to the court, get the best offer you possibly can, submit it to the court. I'll go to the court and I'll back you up on it."
Wow.
And that's what happened. We ended up getting it sold for 260. Okay. The fact that somebody bought it, period, with it the way it was, it really should have been leveled.
Yes.
Okay. They ended up going in and completely gutting the place. And I mean, they spent easily $200,000 on this place to get it back to where it was even livable. Okay. And so when it was all said and done, yeah, it was probably worth $500,000 when they were finished, but they had a ton of money in that thing and it was a real fixer, right?
Yeah, right.
The fact of the matter is, it frustrated the heir to the estate because even though the probate court worked with her and worked with us and we figured out a way to make it work, it still was one of those things where she was not in control.
Yes.
The court was in control. And that's one of the things that I think people need to realize is that they're setting themselves up for, and it's really something that they want to try to avoid, I think. So what you're doing is invaluable,
Thank
absolutely
you.
invaluable. You're not giving them legal advice. All
No.
you're saying is these things are out there, right? And
Yes.
you need to be aware of it. I've been doing this a very long time, and I learned something today from you that are actually several things from you that I didn't know. And I'm really, really glad that we did this. So let's do this. You have a mobile notary service. Talk about and I know you have talked about some of these things, but talk about what it is that sets you apart from sort of everybody else in the marketplace.
So my experience in answering this question is that as a mobile notary, it's my business. I'm
Yeah,
the CFO, the everything about it. So how am I going to keep up on what's going on in the market? How am I
right.
going to be out there and, building my business? That is the answer to that was partnerships with networking with other
Yeah.
notaries. So what I did is a friend of mine that's now retired back in 2004 set up, or in 2000, sorry, 2009, we
Mhm.
set up Notary Pals and we referred each other. And
Okay.
so we learned from each other that way. So she had more business experience than I did, but I had more actual physical notary work more.
Right.
So that expanded into Notary Pals of San Diego County Facebook page where we mentor and we help other notaries and can do referrals as well. Um, what sets me apart, I just realized this is my purpose.
Mhm.
So I bring to you not only the notary business, which is all I have three things to do in notary. Make sure the document doesn't have any blanks, make sure it's got the correct certificate verbiage for whether it's an acknowledgement or jurat, make sure that's compliant, and make sure that the signer is the one that's supposed to be signing. That's
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
That's the fear level if you're new. Well, anybody can do that.
Right.
But what happens if there's more into it than that? That's where I was talking about my take sheet. I
Yeah.
find out what is the purpose of this? Why? And it's just chatting. And
Yeah.
I have to make sure that you're coherent. And in the
Hmm.
senior community dealing with Alzheimer's and with memory care and all this, and something you might just stutter, you got to make sure that whoever is signing signs. So
Hmm.
instead of just going down my questions that they give you, what day is it? Who's the president? Well, we don't know that right now, but
Right.
and who's this and what's this? And one lady, when I was a witness, said, I feel like I'm in court. Oh no, this is what we have to do. And my daughter was a witness, and we got in the car, and she goes, Mom, do you do it that way? No. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, it sure is raining outside. Robyn, it's not raining, it's sunny. Oh
Right.
my goodness, or things like that where I'm chatting to make the people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Because whatever I'm noticing is very important to somebody.
Yeah.
Whether the government's requiring this to be notarized or the person wants to be notarized. I want to make sure that I'm doing my job because I love my people and I don't want to go back because they screwed up.
Right.
I don't want to do that, but I want to make sure that they understand to the best of my ability that I can offer them what they're signing so that
Yeah.
they know. And so that's where they remember me for notary.
That's a big part of it. And the
Hmm.
training that you do and the teaching that you do is I think probably the most important thing that you do in
Thank you.
that if you want to master a subject, teach it,
Hmm.
right? If you want to
Right.
master something, go teach it because you'll learn more about that subject from teaching it than you can possibly ever learn doing it. You know, it's amazing how that works. So I love the fact that you're teaching and you're training and you're investing in the future of our industry, right? That's a
Hmm.
big, big deal. That's a big part of who you are and what you do. Elder abuse is a big thing, and it's something that unfortunately is growing, not shrinking, right?
Hmm.
And it's important that you're doing what you're doing in terms of how you're sort of casually finding out, are they cognizant of what's currently happening, right?
Hmm.
Can they, are they and you're making sure that you're sort of throwing certain things in casually to make sure that they're with you, to make sure that where this is not an example of elder abuse and that type of thing. And I think that's really, in fact, I know what that's invaluable in terms of the service that you're bringing. I love the fact that you have the background that you have in loan processing because you can sit with a set of loan documents. And let's be honest, loan documents are like a book. I mean, it's incredible all the
Yes.
things that are in there, right?
Yes.
And if you can sit and actually have a conversation, I've signed loan documents before. I know it's hard to imagine, but I've signed loan documents before as a consumer, right?
Hmm.
And what's interesting is I know more about the loan documents than the people that are signing me. So the background that you
Hmm.
have, of course, I've been in mortgages for 32 years, but in the background that you have is incredibly important in terms of being able, like you said, sit with first time home buyers and be able to have a conversation with them and explain it to them. That Starbucks that you were talking about, I sat with a real estate investor for 4 hours one day. And he was a former pastor of a church in Vista. And my clients that I had helped with a short sale in Oceanside attended his church. And he was looking for somebody who was an expert in real estate, and my clients referred me. So
Nice.
we meet at that Starbucks in the 4 hours, and from spending time with me that I'm probably pretty loud, right? So I'm sitting there talking to him, and I'm explaining these things to him. I ended up with four people that walked by me and said, "I need your name and phone number right now. I have a real estate deal I need you to help me with. You know more about real estate in your little finger than anybody I've ever met." That kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Because we were going through, if you're going to invest in real estate, what do you need to watch out for? What are the potential pitfalls? What are the things, right? And it took the better part of 4 hours just because he and I enjoyed talking. He was a former pastor, right? He
Hmm.
loved to talk. And we got into all kinds of different conversations, but it was all around the idea of real estate investing and basically expertise in real estate and that kind of thing. And it was really cool. But I literally, that Starbucks is a great place to spend time because people eavesdrop all the time, especially when you're as loud as I am, right?
Yeah, I tend to eavesdrop too when I go into signings. I was at the brand new Panera on, where is that, 78 and Vista Way.
Yeah.
And so I was there and I'm leaving my one-to-one with a person, and this gentleman was quite dapperly dressed, a young man, and just like, wow, I was impressed. And he's getting out of his car. Excuse me, I just wanted to, admire you for the way you're dressing. You're quite dapper. And he goes, oh, thank you. And then I said, what do you do? And he was a financial advisor. And
Yeah.
I said, really? So who's your notary? Oh, our preferred notary. And he says, I don't have one. I said, I would love to have a one-to-one with you. Set it up right then. Right
Perfect.
then. Another thing that happened, I was over at Ocean Hills,
Yeah.
senior, what do they call that? Skilled nursing.
Yep.
So I was there and I was walking in for a client, and I'm talking to the receptionist and people walking by. And a lot of people were coming in for their grand opening event that they were having.
Yeah.
And some people were talking about a trust, and I was sharing this. And another resident walks over and says, I need your card.
Yeah.
And so then 2 months later, this gal calls me and says, hi, you gave me your card, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
Mhm.
really? And she is one of the liaisons for the residents and the staff there. And she
Oh,
has referred me to clients there. So for me, a client is someone that gives me sustainable. So
yeah.
whether it's 1, 2, 5, or whatever each month, a signer is a one and done.
Yeah.
So this particular woman is able to be a client
Isn't that
and
awesome?
provide and refer her friends. And that's the best referral. And I see that a lot. It's a big, the best thing you can do is refer.
Yeah.
Well, the best thing to me you can do is share,
Yeah. Absolutely.
share.
Yeah.
So that's
And
what I
that's
do.
that's where what you do becomes invaluable, because people need what you're providing. They don't
Mhm.
even know it. They need what you're
Right.
providing and they don't know it, right? And by sharing, you can open those avenues up. That's awesome.
And
Is
I
there anything
tell,
else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
I wanted to mention, just because I'm one of those spitfire things like that, is
I
as
love
I
it.
volunteer at the Oceanside Chamber of Commerce as an ambassador. And
Cool.
so when my daughter was at San Diego State in the business finance major, they didn't do anything about networking. She learned from me.
Yeah.
But at Cal State San Marcos, they have a Business 300 networking class. So it's
Ooh.
part of the business class, but all they do is networking. So they've asked 5 chambers, this is the second year, local chambers, to come, and they do a roundtable with the students. And then the students or the mentor moves, and we talk about what they want to know: entrepreneurship, what strategies did you use, all these questions about what's going on in the market. And then a week or two later, they're invited to the Oceanside Chamber of Commerce regular monthly mixer, so they
Awesome.
can have on hands networking. And what I learned, from these networking with them sitting face to face, how do you connect? LinkedIn. Every single one of those students said LinkedIn. So I went home and I dusted the dust bunnies off my LinkedIn, and oh my gosh, I'm learning so much from these students,
Yeah.
and yet being able to share back, because when I share, my notary is just a part of it. The rest is marketing and networking, and how do you network? And yes, I know. And so when I teach new notaries, I have a workshop, and I have four modules: networking from your tagline up to how you walk in and your intention and the confidence you get. Marketing, how do you use that as a notary? And then your CRMs, how do you
Mhm.
keep your clients? Thank you for closed business. And then just tips, 3 hours, $100.
Yeah.
So I've been asked by the Chamber of Commerce to put that into general business.
Awesome.
And so I do that through my one-to-ones. I'm helping new entrepreneurs think outside the box, because it gets stuffy in there.
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree. So how can people reach out to you?
The best way to reach out to me is by texting or calling me. So
Okay.
my telephone number is 760-805-6064. I have an email, but it's not on my phone. It blows it up, so I don't want to do that. And I do have a website, carlsonmobilenotary.com, and I monitor that a lot. LinkedIn is the other one, under Robyn Carlson. I have a Facebook page, Carlson Mobile Notary. But the best way is just to pick up the phone and give me a call or a text. And if I'm not there, I will get back with you.
And it's Robyn with a Y,
Robyn with a,
Robyn,
yes, sir.
right? And then
C-A-
Carlson the way it's normally spelled,
Carlson.
right? So give us your cell phone number one more time.
760-805-6064.
Awesome. Robyn, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed every second of this. I knew I would. I knew that was why I was so excited about this. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.